The summer's hottest concert series is back. Jazzin' at the Shed takes place every Wednesday night, now through September 14th at Shed Aquarium. Enjoy a night of live music from premier jazz musicians, breathtaking skyline views from Shed's lakeside terraces, food, drinks, 32,000 aquatic animals, and complete fireworks show. Tickets are on sale now at shedaquarium.org/jazzin. Become a member today and receive free admission. Jazzin' at the Shed is sponsored by Chase.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hi folks, it's Chris Daly here, and as usual we bring you good conversation regarding Jamaicans or anything Jamaican. And tonight we have a really riveting story for you, and we'll be in dialogue with Mr. Stephen Smith. Mr. Stephen Smith is a business owner. He sits on many boards of NGOs within the United States. He's the vice president of Main Street Program in Beaverton, Oregon. But the thing that we're going to be talking about is Goad Island tonight. Smith started this No to Port on Goad Island, and he has several social media to promote this and petitions. So tonight we'll be entering into engagement with him about that. To do the interview is my partner, Janice Maxwell. Take it away, Janice.
Well, thanks, Chris. Steve, we really appreciate you spending some time with us. So tell us about a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in the northwest part of the United States, born and raised primarily up in that neck of the woods. I currently live in California, and gosh, what do you want to know about me? There's so much, I don't want to bore you with my life story here. You probably want to know how I got involved in this and why we're talking about Goad Island. Let's cut to the chase there. Yeah, I'm
disastrous.
I'm an amateur herpetologist, and for those that don't know what a herpetologist is, that's somebody that deals with reptiles. I primarily deal with lizards. That's my thing. I'm not a real big snake person, although I realize that snakes and lizards just amount to having legs or no legs most of the time. But so my love is for lizards. I've got quite a few of them in my home, and I had heard about this situation down in Jamaica through the International Iguana Foundation and the Iguana Specialist Group or Specialty Group that does work in the Grand Caymans, and actually there's like 8 different types of iguana down there in the Caribbean region that they work with, and this being one. So when I heard that there was a proposed development for the Portland Bight Protected Area, Goad Islands specifically, for a transshipping hub development, and knowing the status of the Jamaican iguana as I do, I got involved. So that's basically what led me to focus in on this area.
Well, why do you think a port will be disastrous? And I'll play devil's advocate right now. Well, we need the jobs because there are no jobs in Jamaica, and this will be an opportunity for low-skilled people to be employed.
Okay, we'll start with the what I believe is the obvious, is the environmental concerns there. This is Jamaica's largest protected area, and as such, it has its largest stand of mangroves, and I'll give you a figure that the UN estimated in 2012 that just the mangroves in that area alone account for over $45 million per year in carbon sequestration. That's just the mangroves. Then you start to look at the rest of the area, and you see that it's even more per year. Okay, how that works for Jamaica is that by keeping their environments intact and keeping them maintained as nature, they get carbon offset dollars every year. While that doesn't directly affect people in jobs per se, this development in that particular area would require the Goad Islands, which are primarily dry limestone to be blown up. And dredging operations would have to occur in the area, and those would be deep water dredging. So we're looking at destruction of an island, and then we're also looking at destruction of the ocean. And from what we know and have discovered, that this would also be an encroachment onto the Hillshire Hills area, which is where primarily the Jamaican iguana is found currently. The Jamaican iguana, for people that don't know, is one of the world's 100 top critically endangered species. So it's not like it's, something that we can just look at and say, okay, well, move it over there. It's not that simple. The animal has proven very difficult to breed in captivity and only lives in this one place in the world. It doesn't live anywhere else. They've tried it. It doesn't work. So it's not a matter of just taking a couple of lizards and moving them, along with the other species that are endangered and critically endangered in that particular area. So that's the environmental side of it, just briefly. And then we identified very quickly that there were three main body issues, and they have subcategories that go with them, the environment being one. The next one was the cultural heritage issues surrounding the area. The Tanano tribal people that inhabited the island before the Spaniards arrived there called that area their home. And while the Tanano people are all believed to have been wiped out of Jamaica due to various causes, disease being one of them, that area is still very archaeologically rich. There are over 60 caves in the area. There's one on Goad Island. That one cave has human remains and pottery shards from that period. We had a professor from an archaeologist from Florida that came in during the Highway 2000 project that halted it due to tribal artifacts that were unearthed when they were grading. So we know that just by the accounts that were made throughout time, that there was over 200 different settlements and in that area, and that has yet to be cataloged and looked at. So we know that there's the cultural heritage issue. The Goad Islands also at one time was used for a holding station for slaves that were brought in from Africa. They were either they were processed there and then taken over to Kingston. So as far as current day people that live in Jamaica, I would think that would be somewhat of a memorial to their ancestors over there on that island, that they would want to kind of look at it and go, while that's a wicked past to be brought here, that is our past. It is our culture. It is our heritage. So there are those aspects. And then the third one that we identified was the freedoms and rights issue. And what that comes down to is that Jamaica, in their constitution, amended their charter back in 2010, and it was fully adopted, I believe, back in 2012, that elevates the environment to that of a human right. So it gives everybody within Jamaica or Jamaicans the right to have a healthy environment, and it does elevate it to a human rights area. So we identified those three areas as this is not a good idea. And then there's the Biosphere Reserve application that was submitted to the UN and approved by the UN, only to have it halted by the government. So we looked at it and said that the Biosphere Program and the Biosphere Reserve programs, if anybody looks at the UN programs, they know that it helps to employ the poorest of any nation where they exist if they are managed correctly. Under the program, Costa Rica, for example, everybody knows about the ecotourism that happens in Costa Rica simply because they have an outstanding biosphere. And other regions, Africa being one, they're dotted all over. There's over 157 of them, I believe, throughout the world, and every one of them a success story. So we know that there's employment to be had there with the biosphere, and probably more immediate and more than the 10,000 purported jobs that the port would offer at its height. So we're of the position that they should actually look for another area for the port development and have both. I mean, I'm not against, and we're not against, having jobs for Jamaicans. We want that. That's the main thrust here. But we're simply saying, look, you can have both. You don't have to sacrifice the pristine area here for this development. You can develop it in another area that's not protected, that will have less environmental impact, and you'll be able to maintain all of those things and have the added value of ecotourism and research facilities and educational facilities and small businesses, artisans, you name it, that adopt those programs and become very valuable in helping the country. And, of course, that money that's generated from that activity with the biosphere stays in the country. It doesn't get it's not a foreign investment that goes away. Yeah. So we're looking at it from that point.
What do you think the IMF and the World Bank consistently target third world nations? I mean, giving a country like Jamaica or any place that you find IMF or the World Bank giving money, basically what they're doing is turning them into addicts. It's like a drug dealer that says, okay, I'll give you some free heroin, because they know eventually they're going to turn into junkies, and the World Bank benefits.
And it's not just the World Bank that benefits, it's also big business that benefits. If you look at the situation here, the funding for this so far is coming from China. And the same thing is occurring if you look at the Highway 2000 project. Let's take that for an example, because that's one that is being worked on currently. With that program, that's funded by China through CHEC, China Harbor Engineering Company, and their parent company, China Communications Construction Company, and they are a state-owned business. The issue with the parent company, CCCC, is that they are banned by the World Bank for bribery and corruption charges until 2017. So that means that all of their projects and their subsidiary or sister companies are banned from holding any kind of contract money. So that means that the funding has to come through China. And how that relates to the IMF and World Bank is much the same, because it's the same process. What they do is they say, here's this chunk of money, and we're going to do this infrastructure development here, and we're going to have the contractors that know how to do that put in place. And there's nepotism with these contracts. If you look, anywhere in the world, there's this, here, I'll pay you to do this, and you do this. And then what happens is the developments then start to occur. There's a lot of low-paying jobs for the native people of the area, and a lot of the higher-end paying jobs get awarded to usually FDIs, foreign direct investments. So the money comes in to the countries, and then it goes out of the countries again, and the people of these countries are then left with what I've termed, like butterfly net economics, where they just kind of like try to grasp the money as it's flying over their head. So
wow, I've never heard that before. Well, that's a good image.
Well, I mean, it's basically how it works. I mean, whether it be the IMF, the World Bank, or with direct foreign investments like what we're seeing here with China. So what the country is left with is the debt and the maintenance of the infrastructure for whatever period of time, like the Highway 2000 project. I'll flip back to that one because we're on Jamaica. That project there, CHEC will reap the benefits of that project for the next 35 years, meaning that they will collect the vast majority of the tolls. That money won't be kept in Jamaica. That's going to go back to the investor. It's a business transaction. Mm-hmm. So obviously in business we all want to make a profit. I get that. I'm a business person. That's the nature of capitalism and business. You are in it to make a profit. So that is the deal, and it's really the only difference between this and the IMF and the World Bank is really there isn't any. I mean, it's money is money, and it's coming in and flowing out the same way. So
what? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, you were going to ask me a question. I'll pause.
Okay. So what alternatives does Jamaicans have, considering the fact that you see Omar Davis and the other people signing the contract, the journalists were there, everyone's taking the photos. They said this is a done deal. The paperwork's already been signed. So, yes, we want this to stop, but if the paperwork has already been signed and the ink is dry, what can we do?
Well, that's one of the things that we've been battling with as far as education. The deal is far from over and done and set into stone. What's occurred is back in August of last year that Prime Minister Miller Simpson was in China with her contingency and signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU. That MOU was brought back to Jamaica and was moved forward. Now, nobody knows what that contains, and there are different NGOs in Jamaica that are going after that. But then after Omar Davies' speech to Parliament in October of 2013, he kind of dropped the bombshell that not only was the framework agreement, which is the initial next step of this being implemented, but that there was going to be a coal-fired generating plant there. So just for this enclave, and that enclave term is not my terminology. Omar Davies used it first in his speech, and then the former Minister of Transportation, Mike Henry, then used it in a couple of interviews, and it's been used since. We just kind of went, okay, if you want to call it an enclave, we're calling it an enclave. But the power plant itself is not for the people of Jamaica. That would be the first thing that needs to be understood. This isn't going to do anything for the people of Jamaica. This is simply to run this complex, this enclave of massive development. We're not just talking about a transshipping hub. We're talking about industrial areas and things like that within the Portland Bight. So that's what that's for. It won't have any effect on the people of Jamaica and lowering their power bills or anything.
Except the only thing that it'll do is cause pollution, and you can't breathe, and it'll be like China if you're going to do a coal thing. I mean, what happened to solar and wind energy? It's not great. We're not in a warm area.
You know, we have pushed for the alternative. You know, we're not about saying no and then not offering something on the table here. It's we've said to them very openly and honestly, there are alternative sources. The UN has also said that and gave them a grant here maybe a month or so ago for alternative energy sources and research and development. The U.S. has told them very lightly that a coal-fired plant would be a no-no. If you look, there is a letter from the UN, specifically the UN, UNESCO, and the UN, saying and outlining the issues with the Portland Bight Protected Area. Now, that was delivered in an open letter to Minister Pickersgill back in October, again, of last year, prior to Omar Davies' speech. And the UN offered assistance in helping them to identify a different area to use. And, by sending in their scientists and whatever international help they could to help them and then let them know very politely but in stern diplomatic terms that it would not be a good idea because they would be violating a lot of international agreements here. And that's why we keep on saying, look, they not only identified 68 local laws and international agreements that would have to be ratified in order for this project to go through. Okay? Those are not easy hurdles. While they can withdraw from the UN agreements 4 years after the fact, after they've signed on, I mean, they're committed for at least a 4-year stint with the agreement, there are some agreements that they cannot rescind on. And even with that, those requests have to be sent up through the UN, and the UN has to take those to their committee, then the case gets pled there in the UN. So, to say it's a done deal is like, well, no, that's not the case. Then then there's the local laws, and so far there has not been any filing on the constitutional rights that would be thwarted here and tossing part of the Constitution out. And I would think that Jamaicans, I know that if somebody was doing that to me in the United States, I would have a fit and fall in it. And not...
some Jamaicans don't even know the repercussions, because the way it's being marketed is that you're going to get jobs,
Well, we looked at that too, and we looked at the World Bank figures, and I know that you asked me a question about that, but they do keep track of, as well as the UN. I mean, we didn't rely on one source. We looked at World Bank, IMF, and UN figures, as well as the U.S. reports on Jamaica to gather data, and what we saw was 173,000 people, 100,000 people out of work, 17.3% unemployment rate. 10,000 jobs doesn't mean anything. That's a drop in the bucket. And to think that you're going to re-kickstart an economy with just 10,000 jobs at the peak is, and they're saying when fully developed, if you go back and you read Omar Davy's speech and you see what he is actually saying there, he's not saying, and at first they were saying, upwards of 20,000 jobs or 25,000 jobs, and they backed it down to 10,000, and then and so we're hearing little bits and pieces of it as far as how it will be of any impact to Jamaicans. And then there's the issue of what he said in his speech again. And, we're about holding them to their word and what they're saying publicly. He said that they would be looking to relax the citizenship laws for Chinese workers coming to China for this project. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that when you sign a contract like you did with the Highway 2000 project, for example, where the majority of the jobs were to be given to Jamaicans, that is not the truth now. We have 35% Jamaicans. The rest of them are people that have been brought in to work on the job. So there's only 35% of the workers that are working on the Highway 2000 project that are Jamaicans. The rest of them are foreigners that have come in. So what we have said and challenged to them is like, okay, of these wonderful 10,000 jobs that you keep on touting and telling Jamaicans about, have you told them how many people you're going to actually allow in to become citizens of Jamaica and hold citizenship and then be counted as a Jamaican on these jobs when you go to do the figures and sit down and say, well, we're going to give X amount or this percentage of jobs to Jamaicans? So to us, looking at it, we don't see that it would be of that big of a benefit to Jamaicans, except for the fact that it's going to be low-paying labor jobs. That's it.
Which is nothing. Yeah.
Well,
so based on your...
If you look at his speech again, and I'll keep on going back to that, because he even says in there that the reason why China wants to come in is because of the increasing cost of labor within their own country to produce durable goods. So he fully well knows, and so does the government, that cheap labor is where it's at, and they're going to do this off the backs of Jamaicans. And given their human rights violations in China alone, that's a reason enough to send shivers up not only my back but anybody else's if they think about it. Okay, go ahead. You were going to ask me a question.
So based on your experience in Jamaica, how viable is ecotourism? I mean, can we do what Costa Rica is doing?
Yes, you can do it.
But we have to be able to prove it.
Yes, and currently the proof is in the pudding, really. You've got 6% of the GPN there, or the gross national product there, is tourism. The issue becomes one of only 30% of the money that is spent on tourism right now remains in Jamaica. The other 70% is going to, like cruise lines, because that is the largest, so far, been the largest tourism that has come through the area. Now, if we look at flipping that and saying the average stay would be longer with ecotourism, and the world trend, if you look, again, we went to looking at the world trend with what was happening with tourism worldwide. And what we found was that, and that's not something we made up. This came, out of the world, and not the UN and not the U.S. There's no influence there from any one country. That the world trend is trending away from these places that people would go, like the Disney worlds of the region, where you go in there and it's a tourist, hook. That's about it. I mean, it looks great the first time you're in there, and if you want to buy a trinket or momentum or something like that, it's you flip it over, and on the bottom of it says "Made in China." It doesn't say "Made in Jamaica."
I know, and that's a great thing. And what you find is that even in the tourist area, it's not even the Jamaicans that are selling these things. It's
exactly.
People, it's not even Jamaican Indians. It's India Indians or Chinese,
right, exactly.
Not Jamaican Chinese. So Jamaicans aren't even getting any money any way you take it.
And we're not looking at China bashing, as a people, because we realize that everybody, they're doing whatever they can to survive as well. But
of course not.
The key issue is the investment. The investment is coming. Where is the investment coming from? And you have these shop owners that are coming into the area, much like they do anywhere else. I mean, this is not unique to just Jamaica. I mean, we have it in the United States as well, where we have people from different countries that come in with the investment from other countries. But the situation is a little bit different here because of the way that our economy is structured. I mean, yes, we have our issues, but then again, it's much stronger and can withhold that influx. It doesn't override what we've got going here economically. So, the biosphere, quite frankly, it says to Jamaicans, look, you want to own ecotourism, and you can do this. You want to own an artisan studio, you can do this. Do you want to work side by side with some of the top leading researchers in their field in marine biology and ecosystems and whatever the specialty is, that would be the draw, and the research money that would come into the area alone would be staggering. If you can imagine, that area has not been researched fully, and that doesn't mean go in and destroy it.
So basically it's an untapped niche. And being a businessman, give us some examples of entrepreneur endeavors that locals can do for economic empower. That's your final question.
Yeah, sure. We had focused in on Old Harbor, for example. These folks over here, roughly around 4,000 of them. There's probably more, but they rely on the ocean for their living. And we know that there's a depletion in the area of fish stock. There's 3 fish sanctuaries within the Portland Bight protected area. We have said if the fish stock is allowed to regain its standing, given anywhere from a 3 to a 5 year period, it's been proven that if you allow them to restock, then you have plenty of fish. In the interim, to help them and the people that scale the fish and the people in the market there, you could actually, with an ecotourism system and a biosphere, set these people up to take trips out and do guided tours. Who knows the water better? They have boats.
That's true.
They have everything that they need. All they need to do is have a little bit of training and maybe some upgrades with their boats to make them a little safer for the general public to take out there. But there is no reason these people can't work during and say, okay, look, here you get this season to fish, and that's it, and then you're on ecotourism. And you gain your dollars through that, and then, of course, they can, people of all ages could be involved in that one because you've got elders there that have been there forever and a day. And they've got some wonderful stories. You can put them to work with, doing all kinds of things. So there's all kinds of possibilities there.
Right. So to learn more about Chris Daly, visit My Heart's Memory, and to learn more about what you can do to help Steve and save the Goad Islands, visit noportgoadisland.com, and he has a blog radio there and all the information, petitions, and things to stay active. And to learn more about Jamaican Diaspora, visit JamaicanDiaspora.com. Thanks, Steve. Bye
You're
now.
welcome. Thank you. Bye.
The summer's hottest concert series is back. Jazzin' at the Shed takes place every Wednesday night, now through September 14th at Shed Aquarium. Enjoy a night of live music from premier jazz musicians, breathtaking skyline views from Shed's lakeside terraces, food, drinks, 32,000 aquatic animals, and complete fireworks show. Tickets are on sale now at shedaquarium.org/jazzin. Become a member today and receive free admission. Jazzin' at the Shed is sponsored by Chase.